Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 428 of Pixels and Ink, the official podcast of CGMagazine, where we take a critical eye to gaming, comics, tech, and media. I am your host today, Christy Hoog, and I'm joined by our editor-in-chief, Brendan Fry, and Jordan Biordi.
Hello there.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today?
I'm okay.
I'm not
Tired.
terrible.
Summer's
Yeah.
here for, some people. Summer vibes. Yeah, just all chat. All
Summer
relax.
jams.
Summer
everything.
vibes. It was like oddly cold this morning. It was like 9 degrees.
There's a lot of, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of smoke around here.
Yeah, there's a lot of smoke around here too.
It's crazy. It is actually crazy the amount of smoke.
You know, it's summer when the smoke rolls in.
When the world is on fire.
It's not healthy.
When the world burns, it's always summertime.
Yeah, nuclear summer. Is that a thing? I don't know.
No,
Anyways,
but definitely just not
You could
great.
make it, I think.
But much like that, some things that were not great in the news this week to discuss. So it's been a little while since we touched on this one, but the ongoing saga of the Microsoft attempt to buy Activision Blizzard.
More of a merger than a
getting-
purchase, but
So, yeah, the acquisition, the conglomeration,
Mhm.
consuming convergence, whatever you want to call it. The FTC
never-ending
case is getting
acquisition.
real ugly. Yeah. And so the
Wraps up
latest
today.
thing, I'm sorry.
it wraps up today, or wrapped
What
up
is it?
today.
It wrapped up today.
Then the judges make their decision if they want to put an injunction in place or not.
We shall see. But yeah, let's. There's been a lot to kind of. It feels like every day there's been like a new headline, like, oh, Microsoft's trying to do this or that.
Mhm.
And let's kind of just start in from what was said today, because this is kind of a wild soundbite. So today, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was testifying or making comments, and said, if it was up to me, I would love to get rid of the entire exclusives on consoles. He says that the dominant player, Sony, has defined a market competition using exclusives, and that's the world we live in. I have no love for that world. So I guess the last ditch play is to say, oh no, exclusives are the reason why we need to acquire this other company.
I mean, if you look back at the history of Xbox, they've had a lot of exclusives in their like repertoire, including Halo, Gears of War, etc. I don't really understand the take here. Like they've never made any intention that they would make Halo on PlayStation. In fact, they've adamantly denied it.
It's
And
it's
you know,
it's weird to me too, because it's like they're so vehemently going after Sony for exclusives
Yeah.
and calling them like the dominant player. What about Nintendo? Because when I think about consoles that I buy for the sole purpose of exclusives, it's Nintendo. It's not Sony. I buy a PlayStation because I like PlayStation and I'd rather have one over an Xbox. But it's like, if I'm going to own two consoles in my thing, it's going to be a Nintendo console and probably PlayStation.
right, that makes sense.
If I tell most people too, like, realistically, the two best options to have, although it's not like totally viable for most people, is whatever Nintendo has got out at the moment and a really good gaming PC.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because
It does cover most bases, yeah.
And a lot of good Sony games or PlayStation games are moving over to Steam anyway. So it's like, as long as you have a solid PC and the Nintendo console, you're set.
Yeah, that's true. A really solid PC though. Like a lot of these games.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. It's not like wholly viable for most people, but
yeah, the
like,
cost would be prohibitive for many.
In a perfect world, that would be the best option. But
Mhm.
when it comes down to taste, it's just like you have Nintendo and whatever else you want.
That's fair.
It's like, what have you owned the most over the last 20 years? Because you have digital games backed up and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a real weird strategy to be like, exclusives. Wow. Considering that you used to have exclusives, like, and you still have a few exclusives.
And to be fair, that's what a lot of the problems, the big problems that kind of why early on this week the case was so bad, looking bad for Microsoft, was the fact they did make all those Bethesda games exclusive. So that's kind of the pot calling kettle black type thing going on right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, like one of the first things they did when they got Bethesda was cancel Starfield on PS5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Pot calling kettle black.
No. Let me be clear here. I'm not saying that Sony or Microsoft are right on this front. I don't have a stake in the game. I don't really care. I don't think mergers are great for people usually. Where if one company gets everything, it often means that prices go up or there would be less choice. So that's bad. I don't really think Microsoft or Sony are one is evil, one is good. I think they both do bad things. They do good things, as any corporations do.
And dumb things. Also.
Well, I don't know how like true this is. I saw it on a website, and I'm just kind of like looking at it now. But basically,
Okay.
it was Jim Ryan, PlayStation
Mhm.
CEO, basically saying that like that PlayStation or Xbox like making Starfield and like a console exclusive isn't like he doesn't view it as anti-competitive. So it's funny to me that you have like the the PlayStation CEO who could very well like turn around and say the exact same thing and be like what you were saying, like they made all these games that were going to be on PlayStation console exclusive.
I think he was. That was the Call of Duty comments were the ones that he was like. There was emails back and forth.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. For some reason, I thought I
think it's
saw.
more the fact that he thought spending $69 billion on a company to get Call of Duty when you can probably lock up exclusive rights for like probably 10 years for like $5 to $10 billion. So why go 69 billion? It's a weird choice. I
Yes,
think he
yes,
is making.
yes. You're right. I misread.
I
This is
think
what I
he
mean,
his.
because someone like misposted it somewhere. That's why I completely like misread it, because like the way it was phrased to me, that he was basically saying, oh, like what they're doing isn't anti-competitive. Like console exclusives aren't anti-competitive. That's why I thought it was funny. I was like, well, this guy's basically saying like kind of doing a class act over here. But I guess I was wrong.
No, I mean, to be fair, I think it was more of just the fact that he thought it was a weird waste of money.
Yeah.
That Activision Blizzard have a few good properties. They have the Warcraft, Diablo, things like that, along with Call of Duty, and their mobile titles like Candy Crush, etc. But
Oh, okay. So okay, no. The way it says here in this article is when it was basically, when he was asked about Starfield not getting a PS5 release, he said, "I don't like it, but I have fundamentally no quarrel with it." He continued, "I don't view it as anti-competitive." So that's what I'm saying. Is like he's basically saying, yeah, okay, like Xbox is doing what it needs to do to move consoles. Like he could turn around and cry, the same
well, the thing is, it's not
sad song.
He isn't suing to stop the deal.
But
the
yeah,
FTC
right.
is. He
Exactly,
isn't like,
right?
personally doing anything. I mean, he's kind of bitching that this is probably bad, but he is not personally doing it. The FTC is the one trying to stop the merger. Yeah, I mean, I think Jim Ryan is definitely being duplicitous in this. Yeah, sure. Definitely.
It just made me laugh, because it's like he could have easily turned around and said, well, look what they're doing, so like, fuck them. But
the hypocrisy just kind of spoke for itself there, right? Yeah,
yeah, right.
Like on one hand they're saying, oh, PlayStation's made it about exclusives when they are doing the same thing, and Jim Ryan has no ill will for them for that. I mean, yeah, that's what you gotta do. If you don't have a new Halo, you gotta do something.
Xbox is just like,
I mean,
we have to make it exclusive because
I don't think. Do I think it's anti-consumer? Yes.
Oh, it's
do
100% anti-consumer.
Is it anti-competitive? No. I mean, like,
it's still there.
Sony isn't going to make God of War for the Xbox anytime soon. That being said, Sony has been making some of its games for Xbox. Like the MLB series is on Xbox now.
Switch even too, surprisingly.
Yeah. So I mean,
even
Sony
Death Stranding too.
Oh, broke up there.
I broke it at the Strand. It was the first Strand game. Broke up his his connection.
Broke his roll.
Okay.
Are you back, Brian? Sorry, you.
I wasn't gone.
Totally broke it. Well, you are on our end. Sorry.
Weird. Okay.
But yeah, to kind of come back to the whole like monopoly thing, I was already kind of concerned when Activision and Blizzard merged, right? Like that was two big things merging in itself, and now like a bigger fish wants to come along and make a real babushka out of it. Like I don't know.
It's like,
yeah, it's
well, and it's not like, obviously this has kind of been part and parcel to the industry for a while, because like I was saying, like with Nintendo, even back in the early days, right? Like the whole way the console war was being fought, more or less, or the reason why Nintendo was winning the console war was because of exclusive games, right? Sega had all this, this fancy tech talk, but at the end of the day, all they really had was Sonic. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Are we back? I think Brendan might not be. Anywho, as I was saying, so
signs of life.
Wow, that was my computer
That was
literally
bad.
just crashed.
That was weird.
Came back fast though, Jesus.
We stayed live for a minute and then it kind of like collapsed and then it built back block by block. That was
Very strange. Well,
That was
that'll be
experience.
fun in editing. Yay!
editing. Anyways, you're on something good there, Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, so despite the whatever, like, and to a certain degree, I still think that is true today. That consoles can talk a big game about their technology, and there is always going to be a subset of people who care about that. But the reason the Switch did gangbusters really is because even in its first year, Nintendo came out really strong with a new Zelda, a new Mario, a new Splatoon, a new Kirby, like new everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those exclusives, those games, those are the reasons to buy that console. Now, in Microsoft's case, like Brendan was saying, Microsoft, not to say Microsoft doesn't have a solid library of exclusives, but all they've been trying to do lately to try and move consoles is buying up third-party studios to be like, oh well, if we can't have them, no one can, kind of thing. Like,
I think the biggest problem with a lot of this is, like, I don't think anyone has qualms against Microsoft locking up exclusives. I mean, people do because there's like tribalism, which is stupid. Who cares? But the problem is that the big things that make Xbox aren't really being seen. Like, we aren't seeing the new, like the Halo they released kind of fizzled out. They didn't really keep up with it as much as they should have. Gears of War, we haven't seen one of those in years.
And even the studios that like Rare, or that Microsoft has had for a while, I kind of just gave away the lead there. That they've done nothing with. Like, they've owned Rare for the longest time, and I remember
Sea of Thieves.
Well, Sea of Thieves, sure, but like, what else? Like when the Xbox when the Xbox launched, they had Perfect Dark Zero, which wasn't great, but at least they tried. They remastered Conquer. And then the 360 had Cameo Elements of Power, which I heard was an okay game, but like, they were trying to get stuff out through Rare, like, because Rare has always been known as a solid studio for making this kind of stuff. They tried to do something with Banjo and Kazooie again, like, and it's like they're sitting on this the one studio that they've had forever that has a storied history of good games that they've done nothing with. But it's like, okay, just buy Activision, buy Bethesda, buy the 2K, just buy everybody, and hopefully, as long as we just compile all the studios, and then they'll be forced to buy Xboxes now.
Aha, we got it, the backdoor route. Yeah, no, it's like you said, everything that kind of was Xbox we haven't seen. Like, the most they've done is like Forza, which racing games are pretty much as generic as it gets across video game franchises.
Sure.
And Halo was a total fizzle, and they've just turned to the acquisitions. Whereas, like, what kills me about the comment that they made today, it just seems totally facetious, because, like you said, back with the Genesis, or Sega does what Nintendo don't. Like, there's always been the bickering over exclusives. That's always
Well-
been a feature of the industry, and I mean, it's not the prettiest aspect, but it's always been an inherent fact. Like you can't play Sonic on Nintendo until
Yeah.
2001.
Mm.
You have never been able to play Master Chief on PlayStation, and it's not a new thing that Sony's invented. But
I couldn't help but laugh too, reading some of those comments where he said that they're losing the console war, and I was like, didn't everyone already lose the console war to like Nintendo firmly won? Like where are we?
the second console war.
I don't think that's true.
Or
I don't
third
think that's
console?
true. I think that if you count like the Nintendo Switch is basically the same gen as PS4. So if you want to count that, PS4 and PS5 together beat the Switch.
Well, I think what I was okay, like what I mean, and this is I guess this is my perception of events, that the console war ended with basically with Nintendo winning when it was like Nintendo versus Sega versus kind of Atari when they were still kind of in the game.
I think the answer is the console war as it is. Like every generation is a console. That's always the way it is. It's more the fact of how much market share they get, and I think the answer is right now Sony has most of the market share when it deals with. If you're talking about a hardcore gamer, they either have PC or PlayStation 5. There is a portion that like Xbox Series X, etc., but it isn't quite as big as the PS5.
No, but I guess what I was like working towards was like that was back like the whole console war as it existed like was back in the time when companies were trying very hard to convince you that you only needed one console, and we don't live in that era anymore. Like I was just saying, most people own like 1, 2, maybe 3 consoles. Like it's not just like this year I'm only buying a Nintendo because Nintendo is my go-to. It's like, no, you're gonna buy a Nintendo, you're probably gonna buy an Xbox or a PlayStation. Like there's no war anymore. Like the big 3 really have convinced everybody you have to own at least like 2 or 3 consoles.
Or like the way I always saw it was like the war was Nintendo versus Sega, which ended when Sega flamed out.
Yeah.
And then PlayStation rose up, and
even if
that's a different conflict, I guess is still a strong word, but
I almost want to say too, even if you want to go back to the N64 versus the PlayStation 1 versus the Xbox, right? Like I still feel like Nintendo still kind of had its grasp on gaming in such a way that like most people I knew had an N64. I did know quite a few people who had an N64 and a PlayStation.
Right.
But like I said, once it was like the GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, like Xboxy era, Xbox into Xbox 360 era, like most people owned 2 consoles. Like they had a couple. Because there was just that was the sort of the marketing. It's like gaming was a little bit more affordable, it was a little bit more mainstream, and like I myself, in that generation, I had a GameCube, I had a PlayStation 2, I sold my PlayStation 2 to get an Xbox, then I sold my GameCube to get a PlayStation 2, and then I just bought a GameCube again. So I just had all of it.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it was a little more conducive back then because, like, I also had in high school the PS2, the GameCube, and then the Xbox, and then I kind of went where the exclusives were actually, funny enough. And so first it was 360, and until the PS3 came down a little bit, a few more things came out. But then once I got the PS3, Xbox hasn't really been pulling me in the last 10 years with anything exclusive.
No, because it was the exact same thing. Like when the 360 was like, and it was the 360 and PlayStation 3 happened. Like the PlayStation 3 was too expensive. Like it was just barrier to entry. And I loved my PlayStation 2. Like I will firmly say, and I will take this to my grave, that the PlayStation 2 had the best library of games of that generation. Like, well, hands down.
You had the PS1 as well, so yeah, that's definitely been my desert island system forever.
But like when I had my 360 at that time, then it was like the Wii came out, and that was like that was the must-own console. Like, so everyone who either had a PlayStation or an Xbox, like, had to have a Wii at the set as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of when the whole generational thing went off the rails, right? Because Nintendo kind of broke the cycle. They kind of went off the hardware rotation. So like that's nowadays the hardware or the console board thing's silly to me because I mean Nintendo has just been doing its own thing. And everyone else is just having a slap fest in the corner.
It doesn't exist.
Like even looking at sales data for like Final Fantasy 16 this past week in Japan, Switch is still like blowing PS5 hardware out of the water like on a week-to-week basis. It's untouchable in most markets. It's the oldest system and the weakest.
It is, yeah.
So it's the lines are so blurred at this point that the whole console war thing is just kind of redundant to me.
It's silly.
To come back to Jim Ryan though, actually, some of the other comments recently, he said he's been speaking to several studios and companies, and they've all been telling him that they find the Xbox, or maybe not all, let's not generalize, but many publishers have been telling him that they find the Xbox Game Pass to be value destructive.
I'm going to throw it out there. I have heard similar things because when it first launched, Game Pass was very good for publishers. Microsoft gave a very good cut to all the games that were on the service. And as it's gone on, Microsoft has reduced what they've been giving out to different developers and publishers. As such, it makes it less valuable and means that the day one sales or loss isn't worth what they're getting.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Is the day one, because PlayStation Plus with the medium tier, like the second tier, is essentially Game Pass. It's been like $1 more than Game Pass per month, but soon Game Pass is going up by $1, so it's going to be on par cost wise. The libraries are pretty much identical, except for that day and date and the few Xbox things. So that kind of takes out the value destructive part for publishers, I think. I've always kind of wondered how Xbox Game Pass gets along with the publishers that way. Like it seems too good to be true. It's a great deal for the consumer, and that you never need to like buy games that often, but it had to have a hiccup somewhere, right?
Well, has Microsoft ever released the information on how like that revenue is sort of divided? Because
not to my knowledge, but again, they've been really cagey. Like they stopped releasing console sale numbers like a decade ago after the 360 or after the Xbox One had a kind of a tepid launch. So I'm not surprised they've kept that to their chest. Plus, if it is, value destructive, again, to use that term, it's in their best interest to not spill that tea and out themselves for what they've been, the kind of deal they've been pulling.
Yeah, because I can't imagine how like even if like say like 1 million people signed up for a year's worth of Game Pass at how much is it? It's like $30 for the year, $60 for the year,
16 to like a month. Actually, I think it's 17 a month.
17 a month. Okay, so yearly that's like what, like a little over $100. Like that's, I guess, in terms of revenue wise, like that's enough to sort of split between however many publishers are on board with it at a I guess a certain flat rate. But yeah, like if you're talking based on how the revenues generally split between like publishers, the platform holders, etc., based on like cost per transaction, I guess maybe on the back end, like in the long run, they probably are losing money on it.
Or someone's got to be at some point, right? Like, people are paying so that $17 a month to access this huge library of games means they're not buying the games. So there's sales data not going towards the companies. That's revenue. We don't hear you, Brendan.
Shit.
It's a great system in that I have friends I know that are like a little more strapped for cash, and they love having the Xbox the Game Pass for certain things like day one. They're excited to play Starfield day one. I do people who are excited for Redfall day one. And that's great, and it is nice that we have some kind of option like that for consumers. But it's the buck's got to stop somewhere, right? Like Microsoft can only crib that for so long, even with their giant coffers.
Because and it's like it's sort of like a house of cards, because the things that are beneficial to the consumer are detrimental to the publishers and subsequently the developers. But the cost of gaming, certain publishers want to make it more expensive, which puts stress on regular guys who can't afford games all the time. So you have to be very choosy with what you're getting. So it's like, either do you go for the, so it's like a no-win situation. There, somewhere, like you said, the buck has to kind of stop somewhere, and the whole system needs to get changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's if something's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, I'll be honest. There's been a couple times where I've been eyeing that, like the PS5 Platinum or whatever it is, and I'm kind of just like, no, this kind of seems like a good deal, but I don't know, I have enough games in my library that I just get from regular PS Plus that I haven't played yet. So unlimited access. It's just like Netflix. I'm going to spend 3 hours looking for something not to play.
Yeah, no, I did try the higher tier when it came out last summer, because if you have some time left in your subscription, you can pay the difference to prorate, and so I did that for a little bit. Much cheaper and easier way to do that, and without all the investment. But yeah, it is a time thing.
How many games did you play, Chris?
I dabbled in a bunch to see how the emulation was. It was kind of a different. It was more for a test period for the website than for anything. But yeah, you kind of have to commit to not buying anything else if you want to have the time to play everything that's in there.
I barely got time for Final Fantasy right now, and I paid good money for that one. And that's another one that was fucking $100 or $10 more than games ought to be.
Well, yeah, games are $101 with tax in Ontario right now. So
I tell you though, they really squeezed that $100. All those pixels, all those particle effects. By God.
That's a lot of lighting effects per dollar.
I'm being cheeky though. I'm fucking loving that game. Oh my God.
We're gonna take a quick break because we need to resolve a tech issue on our end. But if you're joining us live, please stay tuned for a moment. We're just gonna dip out and be right back. Now. Bing bong bing. Brendan, go.
Now.
You don't have control.
If you're watching, cut this video. And
set
we're back.
Free. Love of God.
Just go out of frame.
just gonna back away slowly.
There. And we're back.
Clean break.
Clean slate.
Okay, are you restarting your computer now, Verna? Or?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Are we still live? Because it says live and recording.
Yeah, we're still live. I forgot.
Hey.
Okay. We don't do transitions here.
Back. So that would have been a great time for when Twitch's automatic ad breaks there. But
wouldn't it have been though?
One other kind of thing just to touch on with one more things to touch on with Microsoft here too is that there's been a whole laundry list of large studios that have been suggested Microsoft was looking at buying at one point or another.
Some of them I'm just questioning why. I mean, to be fair, Sega owns a lot. Sega, but of Sega owns all of Atlas. They own Creative Assembly. They own Relic. They own a lot of PC studios. They're not small anymore.
But
so
and
it
it's
makes
also
sense.
But Sega realistically has no incentive to get that deal because Sega is doing way better as a third party studio, publishing on everything. Rather
I don't think Activision needed to get that deal either. It was just a large amount of money.
Sure, but whatever Sega whatever money Microsoft would be willing to offer Sega is probably like pennies compared to what they actually would make, like maintaining their independence and publishing on all three platforms.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you're gonna put
Sega seems to
Sonic
have
on
a good.
Xbox and nowhere else.
Well, then I guess I'm not playing Sonic anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Sega seems to have a good relationship with Microsoft, and
Very
of
much
the
so.
Japanese
Mhm.
like big studios, Sega is one of the more successful ones on Xbox, thanks to things like Yakuza, I believe, is one of the biggest drivers there. But
Although I think it's
like you
also
say,
that's also
though,
huge on PlayStation too.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like in particular, it seems like from what I've observed, anyways, maybe this is observation bias, but it seems like they've
But
got a good fitting with Xbox
I think
players.
the
But
answer is it's one of the few studios where the games it produces do well on Xbox, whereas most of the
yeah.
studios in Japan, their games don't really do well on Xbox. Like Square Enix
No.
is not bringing Final Fantasy 16 to the Xbox right out of the gate because most of the people that buy it would be in Japan or already have PlayStation. That makes more sense to do it there. Put the effort
And
where it makes sense.
isn't it like statistically or something like the majority of game owners or like console owners in Japan are like do just
Yes,
own either a Nintendo or a PlayStation? Like Xbox never had a footing in Japan.
it is
Xbox
it is
has
ridiculously
historically
small
struggled.
amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
But
never
like
been able to grab a foothold.
that's kind of what I can see like with like Chris was saying like games like Yakuza that get brought over to the Xbox, like they games like that find an audience in the West,
Yeah.
you know, but in Japan it's like a game like Yakuza was always going to do like probably well because, you know, it's like it's a crime game based on one of their most infamous crime syndicates, and you know it's going to be on PlayStation, so
Japanese GTA. Yeah.
come on, Sega, bring Yakuza to Nintendo. So
Oh god, yeah.
I want to throw cars at people on my Switch.
with the Joy-Con though. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Throwing
to come
bikes
back
at
to that,
people.
the Square Enix though was the one that kind of came out today. That they
Yeah.
considered buying Square Enix in 2019 or something like that. And it's just that's just a textbook case of just trying to throw money at a problem. Like, oh, we've got no footing for JRPGs. Let's just buy Square Enix.
Well, it's also Square Enix was the thing was they also have a very strong mobile studio or mobile set of a slate of games.
They are very much gunning for the mobile, yeah, and
Square Enix has a lot of power in mobile.
Definitely not quite King power, but definitely.
I don't know if is King still major. Like I know
what
it
has
was.
King has made recently?
Candy Crush.
Nothing they've made, but they've
Yeah,
got
but
their
Candy
hooks
Crush
into a
came
lot
out
of
like
soccer moms.
Candy Crush came out fucking like 20 years ago.
I think it is diminishing. Also, remember Sega just bought Rovio, so that's even bigger.
True.
But I do think King has a lot of titles people still play. Do I think they've done anything recently that is gangbusters?
No, they're just printing money still with in-game transactions on things like Candy Crush, but like they're not breaking any new ground or anything, and they don't need to really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just Square Enix has no good relationship with Microsoft, whereas they have very good relationships with Sony and even Nintendo. Again, they've kind of mended those fences. So it would have been absolutely not in their best interest in any way to go with that deal had it gone through. Kind of reminds me of when Microsoft tried to go into Nintendo and buy them out, and they got laughed out of the office.
Yeah,
like it would have been a very similar response.
Oh my!
I don't. Let me be clear. I don't think there's anything inherently bad with Microsoft trying to buy studios. I think the problem is it could be anti-competitive for the way it's done. That's it.
Yeah.
It might not be anti-competitive, but it has the chance to be based on the fact that they are buying up massive things that people do love. I don't really play Call of Duty, so I'm not really like, oh my god, Call of Duty is not going to be a platform. Also, I play most of my games on Xbox anyways.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm always going to advocate for the consumer and making sure that the consumer is getting the best deal they can get. I don't want to see Microsoft buy Activision Blizzard, then crank the price of Game Pass $10. I don't want to see Call of Duty more expensive on an Xbox or PlayStation than it is an Xbox. There's lots of reasons I would comment on the story, not because I have anything against Microsoft. I don't really care. I think Microsoft do make a good console. I think the Xbox is a solid machine. And I think Microsoft has been very competitive in the way they're pricing it. I think the Series S is a great value. But again, I'm not sure that means that I think Xbox is a blank check to do anything they want. I don't.
Mhm.
And same thing with Sony. If Sony's tried to buy all the studios out from under, if it tried to buy Squeenix and Sega and every Japanese studio, I'd be like, hey, that's also not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
So I
it's
would,
it's the right acquisitions, right? Like
yeah,
it's Square Enix is not a good acquisition for Microsoft. You can't just
yeah.
buy your way into the JRPG market, and you can't just buy a JRPG studio to get at their
Mhm.
mobile section. Activision Blizzard makes sense for the Call of Duties and the Fallouts and Elder Scrolls, but
Yeah.
some of these other ones though, like Sega, not a smart acquisition for them because they benefit from all the platforms.
I think
So
I think the answer is there's reasons that these studios make sense for Microsoft to own. I think Bethesda, ZeniMax, sure. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with everything that was done there. If they want to make Starfield exclusive, sure, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do I think that's anti-competitive? No, because they have the decision. Like, I don't think PlayStation tomorrow is going to make Miles Morales on Xbox, so that's kind of okay. And Sony did recently buy and lock down Insomniac. So that is fine. No problem there. I mean, I do, as someone that knows a lot of people that buy PlayStation and want to see those games on PlayStation, I think, yeah, I feel bad for you because you no longer can. Do I think it's anti-competitive? No. If you're buying a massive conglomerate, I think that's when things get a little bit messy. And buying all of Activision Blizzard, there's a lot of things they control, and just making those all Xbox exclusives might be bad, but it's more the fact that it's taking away choice from players, and that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Like these deals also, it's a lot of it is Microsoft wants to secure its place as one of the biggest players in the gaming space, much like they've secured their place in the big OS space and all these other things. It's not necessarily bad, but it has the chance to be, and that's why I'm scrutinizing it. Just for the record, do not care. I have no favoritism of Xbox over PlayStation.
Pick a side now.
That's the biggest thing I have a problem with.
Swear your blood oath.
There's so many people on Twitter, if you comment on either side of the issue, they'll jump at you saying you're a fanboy one way or the other. A lot of journalists are just doing their job and covering the news. The fact that a deal goes bad or doesn't go bad one way or the other isn't us saying, oh, how dare us not side with Microsoft. Microsoft is not your friend. I mean, unless you work there and they pay you.
Well, and even then, we don't know for sure.
Well, yeah.
$1 billion company.
These days,
it's
really
almost $1 trillion company. Let's be clear here.
So,
do I think supporting this merger? The merger is not going to help most gamers. Flat out, it's not going to be like, oh, suddenly it's bought and suddenly all these games are now better. That's not what's going to happen. Most likely, it's going to start gating off some of these games will be on. That's fine, but understand that's what will happen. It isn't suddenly going to be a golden age for gaming because Microsoft bought something. That's not how it works. Most of the studios that Microsoft bought haven't produced anything in a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just keep that in mind whenever anyone jumps on Twitter and comments. We are not your enemy.
Well, and that's the thing
exactly,
too.
Yeah.
We've even seen it because like I remember when Avowed got announced.
Yeah.
And I was like really excited because I was like kind of just getting off playing The Outer Worlds, and I was like, holy shit, Obsidian, they're back in the game. They made a really good what is essentially Fallout in space. They made the version of Fallout I wished Fallout 4 was.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, cool. They're doing a fantasy version now. They're going to make the Skyrim I wish Skyrim was. And then Microsoft buys it up and whoopsie, Avowed is only an Xbox exclusive now. Like,
so everyone saw that happening. I mean, Microsoft bought them before Avowed, I think, was announced, or just as Avowed was being announced. It was early on.
But sort of, so to your point, what you were saying, like it's not a fanboy thing. It's like you can actively see that things that like someone like as a guy who was excited about a new video game that I would have been able to maybe play on my PlayStation, because like I said, I have a Switch, which, let's face it, would never run that. It barely ran the Outer Worlds, and my more competent console to play the better game on my more competent console. Now I lost that option. So I think like Microsoft buying all these studios is actively taking things away from me now. So it's like, like you said, it's not fanboyism. It's just anti-consumerism. It's like you either own an Xbox or you don't get to play these games.
Or anti-creative even too. Like if you look at back at, again, Rare, like they got bought up, and what have they done? They put GoldenEye out again.
And Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, and
supposedly they're working on a new Perfect Dark.
That apparently has been no progress if you follow all the details. But at least no progress, nothing's happening. So I don't know. I really do have a problem with the way this merger is being like dealt with and how it's being shown off. I think it is playing gamers against gamers for no reason. It is a corporate decision that is not your friend going to marry someone and everyone's angry about it. That's not what's happening.
Yeah.
It is more of a big corporation is buying another big corporation, and that could mean that things that you once were going to get will no longer get.
One way or another, but it's not being made, or it's on another system. Yeah.
I do worry because Activision Blizzard does have such a following on PlayStation. If it could mean, the deals, etc., I could see a better version being released on Xbox, whatever. Not saying it would do it right away, but I could see Microsoft doing that because it makes sense. And if I was let's be clear, if I was the CEO of Microsoft, I would do that too.
It's the borderline dirty move. That's also legit. Like it's
in their best interest. One of the other details we heard was the fact that Microsoft bought ZeniMax because they heard Sony was trying to make Starfield exclusive on PlayStation, and that's why they bought that entire company.
Just to take that toy away from everybody else. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think Sony's any better.
No, they wouldn't be at the end of the day. Like,
if Sony had a war chest of $70 billion, they would probably do it too. I don't think Sony's
war chest. I think it's included with the war chest rental. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But to move on to another console story actually this week. So Nintendo has actually
weird.
Yeah, because Nintendo has actually somewhat acknowledged the fact that the Switch will not live forever.
I mean, I figured that's a given.
Yeah, but they've been so tight-lipped about everything else for the next system that they're working on, which, for the record, I don't mind. I don't mind you waiting until you have something really great to show us.
Yeah, and but Nintendo's been pretty good with that for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part.
They've gotten better in the past few years. Yeah, they've been playing their cards to the chest pretty close. Like, a few years ago, we might have heard about Super Mario Bros. Wonder like months early. Months earlier than we did, anyways. But the story this week was that President Shintaro Furukawa said that as for the transition from the Switch to the next generation machine, they're going to ensure there's a smooth transition for customers by utilizing the Nintendo account, which is kind of a nothing statement that we can take a lot from.
I would take that with a massive grain of salt because Nintendo accounts are incredibly finicky. I don't know if you guys probably not have tried to buy anything from the Nintendo store, like via the website, via the Nintendo account. It breaks for no reason. Like it actually. So like this was when I was trying to get the Animal Crossing Roost stuff, and you have to log in with your Nintendo account to access the My Nintendo physical store. You can literally every single time I tried to add something to my cart, it like would not add to cart. And this also extends to like the points, the My Nintendo like points program to like redeem for physical things. So I had to call Nintendo tech support to get them to like do something technological wizardry to like reset my account so that I could then purchase things or like redeem my points to get some pins. And then after I did that, I tried to do something else and it broke again and it stopped putting things into the cart. So it's just broken now.
I don't think it likes you.
Bad.
It's just and the person on the phone actually said to me like, no, we've been getting a lot of this and we don't know what's wrong. Like this just keeps happening.
I've never had that. That's weird.
It's super weird.
That is very weird.
But this was interesting to me in that, like, is this some kind of indication that there might be some sort of backwards compatibility if we have the access to the account? Because there was a bit of a weird transition between
if it is, as rumors suggest, just the new NVIDIA chip, it should theoretically, it'd be like buying a new Android phone. Theoretically, games that worked on your old Android phone will work on the new Android phone. It has more power for games that can utilize it. Is that actually the case? Who knows?
Yeah.
But that would make the most sense if they want to keep basically like the PS4 to the PS5, keep that kind of cross generation going. That would make sense to do.
Didn't they also say to that it's like, was it who was it from Activision that was saying that it's the new Switch would like be basically as powerful as a PS4?
Bobby Kotick.
Was it Bobby Kotick?
He definitely did say that. Was he the only one that said that? I don't know.
Because not exactly the most. I mean, I don't really trust anything.
Yeah, I don't trust that guy. I saw the headline that was like, Nintendo Switch is almost as powerful as a PS4, says Activision, and I was just like, okay.
Again, in his best interest to kind of downplay what they're working on if he can.
I mean, it sounds like it sounds very much like Bobby Kotick is showing that, hey, Microsoft merger will be great. Look at all the things that'll happen.
I was gonna say, like, it's very on brand for Nintendo to sort of be like one generation behind. So like the Switch is about as powerful as a 360, so it makes sense that the next one would be about as powerful as a PS4.
The Switch is more powerful than the 360. It's just it's more
they made
like
sacrifices for handheld shit. Yeah,
that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Remember, do I think the Switch has more power than? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say.
I've seen some really sloppy 360 games getting ported or like get ported to the Switch and like barely work, and I'm kind of just like why is it worse than it was on this older console?
I think that depends a lot on the port, though, too, right? Because I mean, for all the bad ports, all the lazy ports, there's Nier Automata, which works quite well on the Switch. Like, it's not obviously it's not like the PlayStation level, but it is very functional.
Because I heard that even the BioShock collection is actually pretty good. Like, there's like some visual downgrades, but for functionality, they're actually really good.
Doom Eternal, I think, was another one of the big ones that was
that one was great.
Yeah, no, Doom was really good actually. I'll attribute that more to Panic Button really knowing how to work the Switch.
Then that's what it boils down to, I think, too, right? Because like if you know how to use the Switch, or if your game is coded in such a way that's more of an easy transition. Whereas if you have Square putting out the Kingdom Hearts series as cloud versions and not really
that makes no sense. Those were PS2 games. There's zero reason literally zero reason.
That was just pure push, laziness. Like just get it out.
Also, I was gonna say towards the point about backwards compatibility, but then I got lost in thought. That like if the Switch making the move back to cartridges, I think maybe like if the chip architecture is
I think it's basically just an SD card.
Okay, well it's got those little ridges.
Yeah, it's an SD card. So do SD cards.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about like the way that the 3DS could play DS games because the cartridges were so similar that it was just like pop them in and they worked
I
the
think
same.
the answer is right now, the Nintendo Switch, they're weirdly shaped SD cards is basically how you
Okay.
think about them.
There's a little bit
I
more
think-
to it though, because they have that flavor texturing.
I mean, okay,
Yeah.
flavor
Quality.
texturing and an
Yeah,
SD
can't
card.
forget that.
Yeah. Do they still have that? Was that a thing they still could do?
No, yeah, no, there's still
Yeah.
poison.
Yeah, they
They
still.
still poison.
I recently found that out like about a year ago by accident because I forgot about that trick, and then I was like, I can do it. And I like held the cartridge on just the flimsiest bit of my lips, and it still was.
Oh
on
yeah,
my
no, I did that
tape for
too.
2
I was like, I
days.
had like hands full, and I just put a cartridge in my mouth, and I licked my lips after. I was like, oh, what the?
No, yeah, the arrogance will get you every time.
Foolish me for thinking that Nintendo wouldn't poison me for some reason.
I think it's meant so you
Idiot
don't
child
swallow.
wants to eat a cartridge.
it was meant as a safety issue, but or for safety prevention.
So
but,
how's the plastic just as a weird like coating to it or what?
Yeah, they just.
I don't know how they managed to do it so that it doesn't get on your fingers every time you change cartridges. But yeah, if you ever do that trick, because I got in the habit on the 3DS to just popping the cartridge in on my lip and just swapping.
I will.
You cannot do that with the Switch.
I will confirm that it does get on your hands because I think I have made that
But does it?
mistake too. Where
No,
because
I
I bite my nails a lot, right? So I think
okay.
I switched cartridges and I started biting my nail and I could taste it. So I think like after a while it will fade, it'll rub off, but like it does get on your hands too.
Ew. Gross.
So that's the real question: is how they're going to handle that on the next gen system?
Make the cartridges huge again, so dumb kids don't eat it. You gotta
Make
plop it in
cartridges
like
huge
a Super Nintendo cart.
Or just use the exact same cards. I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, whether it is broke or not is up to debate.
I mean, who knows?
On how you're reporting stuff and how you're coding your games, but yeah, it is neat to have some kind of acknowledgement for Nintendo, though, even if it is this small of a thing. They're like, yeah, we are working on a thing.
Well, the writing's definitely on the wall.
Derailed, but sorry.
So the writing definitely is on the wall. I mean, the Switch,
it's getting old.
It's almost it's what a 7-year-old console now.
Yeah.
Like
or 6. 2017.
6? 20? No, it's 2016 that it came out.
No, I think it was 17. Anyways, 6 or 7.
I'm pretty sure it's 6. Oh, you know what? No, I think you're right actually. Yeah, because Trump won the election and then the Switch came out the next year.
Ugh.
Okay.
So that was my silver lining of life. It was like the world's gone to shit, but at least I get a new console.
Just meeting again.
That's great.
But yeah, so like it's definitely it. Right? It's like they're definitely seeing that like it's the Switch and this like I think like Brendan said, the Switch kind of is starting to show its age a little bit. Nintendo's still doing a pretty good job. Same what they did with the Wii U, keeping it alive with really good first-party games that show off like how unique and versatile the system is, and they're working really well within the realm of the system. But as technologies is moving forward, and you have stuff like the Series X and S and the PS5. You're going to get more games that are doing a lot more cool things. Like Viewfinder would never work on a PS or on a Switch, and I'm like, I'm marveled by the wizardry of that game.
It's really cool.
Oh, it's so cool. I spent like an hour trying to figure out how they were doing it. So
it's a really cool game.
It's just that kind of thing. Like at some point, I think even Nintendo knows they need to move forward a little bit to let these developers start moving some of these more interesting, better games onto it too.
Yeah, because they've always been able to work with the older or the less intensive hardware because they have Nintendo studios supporting it. Like they put their own weight behind it. Which is what I think where they faltered the last couple generations with the Wii in its later years, and then the Wii U is just there just wasn't the push behind it to be like, hey, you don't have to have like Ultra 4K to be the game of the year. I'm very curious to see where we're going to be at like a year from now, because I think the announcement's coming like spring, if anything. We know it's not going to be in this fiscal year, but they got a few more things to kind of get through, and then Metroid Prime 4 on the new system.
Yeah,
I see. I can see
'Cause
that.
like I guess I would be surprised, but maybe not if we got sort of like the first Switch trailer, like we did with the original or the Switch. You know, maybe sometime around the holidays to kind of say like, here's what's coming, like here's our proof of concept thing. And then, you know, we'd have to like wait a year or whatever for it to actually like release officially. But yeah, like holiday season, maybe spring seems like a safe bet.
Yeah, I can see that.
They got to get something out. We've seen a whole generation go by with the Switch.
Yep,
basically, literally too. And it will be curious to see what they do as far as like control schemes, because you know, if this is an indication that there's going to be some backwards compatibility, you're going to have to factor in the Joy-Cons as well, right?
Mhm.
Like that is a very unique model. The new system, if it's going to have that compatibility, has to accommodate that. And it's in their best interest to keep that huge, massive install base appeased. So
100%.
I would say too that even just like on a next version of Switch, like to make it a better console, the Joy-Cons as controllers, conceptually, are a really good idea. So if they just maybe expanded on it, made them a little bit more ergonomic, made them a little bit more sturdy, maybe made them a little bit more tactile, they'd be better. But the fact that you have a portable console that you can take and give a controller to a friend and have like that kind of multiplayer on the go at any time functionality built into your system, like that's genius. That should not be removed. So just
I'm just thinking, like based on that, what you said, their haptic feedback would be so nice. The PS5-ish haptic feedback on a Joy-Con would be.
And the Switch, the Joy-Cons kind of had that. The HD Rumble, like when it works, it really works. Just no one ever does anything with it.
Yeah, it's a very robust little feature, but you don't really realize it until until someone is playing Switch beside you and you hear their controller vibrating at 10 different frequencies.
Yeah.
Over 30 seconds. You're like, oh, what the hell is that? Oh, right, it rumbles.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it'll be something to look forward to as we approach the end of the year. Hopefully, we'll get some kind of insight on that. But I think that's going to do it for us for this week. A little bit of a shorter podcast for, let's call it the long weekend.
That's fair.
Short podcast, long weekend.
Short podcast, long weekend. Get to the summer festivities. But if you'd like to read more on these topics and more, you can find full coverage at cgmagonline.com. Be sure to follow CG Magazine on all the socials. Just search for CG Mag. You'll find us. And if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to podcast@cgmagonline.com. Jordan, where can people find you?
On the website. Like some unhinged person did today.
Also an option.
You can find me sometimes on Instagram, sometimes on TikTok, not very often, at NinjaXJordan. And you can also find me on YouTube at Ninja Jordan Reviews. I'm actually going to try and get some Let's Plays done this weekend.
Cool. You can find me at bfry26 on everything, or just go to CGMag Online and find all my stuff.
And you can find me on everything at Hugathy. Yeah, for all of us here at CGM, have a great Canada Day / 4th of July weekend. And thanks for joining us.
Peace.